Ben Vallis here with First on the Floor. Thank you for joining us. Hope you're doing well. Alongside me, Wayne Spooney. Spooney, how's it going, man?
I'm doing good, Ben. We got to get the three of us on again here soon. I know we've been all
I
been busy, but it's just been two-man pods here and there. So I'm back. I'm good. Feels good. I keep thinking in my head, 44-12. What a great record. And then I realized
Nope.
they're 54-12, 14. I mean, like, it's just insane. Like, my brain is stuck at like 30 games over 500. They're 40 games over 500. It feels fake to say that. Like, it's a made up like record or something.
Yeah, it really does. And we've won one championship in our lifetime, but even just the amount of times we've come close to winning 60 games in our lifetime is few and far between.
Yeah.
So I'm stuck between like one day I'm enjoying this, isn't this fun? Let's enjoy the journey, let's enjoy the process, to like it don't mean a thing without a ring mentality, and I kind of ebb and flow between the two. So I'm sure most of the fans out there are struggling with the same mentality. So we're here, we're living through it together, and we're having a good time. And speaking of having a good time, like you said, shout out to Jake Eisenberg, who's not on this one. We're piecing together lineups at this point later in the season, just like the Celtics are. Look, we're going to get into the Pistons game yesterday, which was undeservedly enjoyable. It was a ridiculously fun time, given that it was a late March game or a mid-March game against a middling or less than middling Detroit Pistons team. We're going to rank the Vibe-iest moments from that game. We're going to preview the Bucks game as well. And if we've got time, we'll get into some of the stuff said about the Celtics on the new LeBron James, JJ Redick podcast. But first, please like this stream. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the First of the Floor podcast as well. Sign up to our playback room, playback.tv/Celtics blog, where you can watch live Celtics games with myself, with Spoonie, with Jake, with other members of the Celtics blog crew as well. Three Leaf Clover, which is Spoonie's weekly Celtics blog column. I believe you've just put one out, Spoonie, or you've just got one coming?
I've got one coming at the end of this week. I've been off kilter. My actual job that like feeds my family and keeps the clothes on our backs has been very busy recently. So I've had a little off schedule, but I'm getting back in schedule on this week. Little statistical comparison. This won't jinx us at all between 2008 and this regular season. So
nice.
Yeah, sorry if we lose in the Eastern Conference Final. That's on me.
It will be Spoonie's fault. The Discord channel, which has become a hotbed of intelligent Celtics conversation, none of which is due to me, but there's a lot of smart people in there dropping a lot of interesting Celtics-based statistics and facts and interesting tidbits, which is great. Merch store as well. The links for the Discord and merch are in the description below as well. If you like this podcast, check out the Celtics Lab podcast, the How About Them Celtics podcast. It's both under the CLNS media umbrella. Similar vibes, similar good times. So go subscribe to their channels and check those guys out as well. Finally, we've got Cedric Maxwell, the 1981 NBA Finals MVP, former Boston Celtic, current Celtics broadcaster for the radio squad there with Sean Grandy, coming on the pod, 6 p.m. Thursday night live here on YouTube. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're going to be talking everything about the Bucks game that'll have just happened the day prior, as well as previewing the upcoming postseason run for the Celtics. So that's going to be a lot of fun. We're really looking forward to having Max on the show. Okay, game recap. Celtics, they did beat Detroit in the end, funnily enough, 119-94. The hot crowd there, Spoonie, capping off a 6-game winning streak, the 6th different streak for the Celtics, so 5 or more wins this season. They now only need to go 5-9 to clinch the first seed, 9-5 to clinch the overall top seed in the league. It seems to be happening, Spoonie, but this game was a lot of fun. What were your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, okay. Can I just say, like, it's a Tuesday night in Boston against the friggin' lowly Detroit Pistons. Cade Cunningham's not playing. Whatever Thompson they have, Amen, I think, isn't playing. And the crowd was reacting like it was a playoff. That's why it's the best fans in the NBA, dude. Mm-hmm. Like, great crowd, great game, great vibes. I mean, there's just a massive talent deficit between these two teams, even with our skeleton crew we were running out, because they're running out of skeleton crew too. Like, I did find the Pistons more impressive than the Wizards, who are like, I don't want to call them ass because ass has like some positive qualities. You know what I mean? Like they deposit, waste out of our bodies. Like the Wizards were worse than ass, whatever that is. They were like toe hair or something like that.
Appendix. Just take that shit
Yeah,
out.
there we go. Yeah, something you can literally just remove with no consequences. And like the Pistons, I thought they played pretty hard. They've got like that big beastly dude, Arani, who I'm sure I butchered his name. But this team is so locked in to the way they want to play basketball. And like we used to see this team when they play bad teams in the past few years, like not really running stuff, just like trying to overcome these bad teams with their talent, getting into the ISO game. Like they were flying all over the court on both ends in a game that really essentially means nothing to the Celtics. And I think the biggest thing that Joe has done throughout the season is empowered these deep bench guys. And like Peyton Pritchard looked like like he would have been the best player on the Pistons last night,
Yeah,
and
dude.
like by a long shot, right? And like you would never have believed that at the beginning of the season, but Joe has done such a good job putting these guys into positions to succeed. Their confidence goes up, and as your confidence grows, you start playing better. It's like the opposite of what happened to Neesmith here in Boston, right? You see him go to Indy, gets to play, gets to make mistakes, confidence grows, and now he's a great player. And like every single dude on the bench is like playing at 100% potential right now. It's amazing.
Yeah, that was definitely the standout takeaway for me as well. And approaching so many of these games now that we've entered the quote-unquote easier stretch of the schedule, even though we're about to come up against the second seed Bucks, has been like, I could absolutely forgive these guys for losing this game, for coming out and just like pissing this one down their legs. And with Tatum out, we've seen bugger all Tatum-free games so far this season. What's the team going to look like without their best player, albeit against one of the worst teams in the league? You could absolutely forgive them for just coming out and having a lackluster performance. But Mazzulla has these guys so motivated, top to bottom, to play the right way on both ends, seemingly every possession, like right down to the end in this one, which is just insane and borderline unfair and unreasonable and immoral to do that against a team like the Pistons. And given what we've seen historically from this like Tatum and Brown-led Celtics, it's still unbelievable when you see that product on the court. Like it still amazes me that they show up for these games because it was just so characteristic and typical of prior Celtics teams to just not. So that's been amazing. Jaden Ivey was probably the standout for the Pistons there, I think, just before we get on to ranking the Vibe-iest moments here, Spoonie. You said in our Discord, I think, like, or maybe it was Twitter, like that they're using Jaden Ivey differently now, and it's a relief to see because they were kind of burying him earlier in the season.
Mm-hmm.
What did you see from the Jaden Ivey perspective?
Yeah, I think part of this is Cade's been in and out of the bet. Like, he doesn't make a lot of sense with Cade to me because they both really need the ball in their hands to be at their best. Like, Cade can be an off-ball spacer, but you're sort of wasting having a 6'7", like, ball-handling point guard when you're just like, hey, go space to the corner, buddy. But earlier in the season, like, I think he was coming off the bench and he was, like, spacing out to the corner and, like, just kind of a cut and attack closeout guys. And he can make threes, but he's not the type of three-point shooter where you have to close out hard on him. And then finally, like really around the turn of the year, they were like, here's the ball, Jaden. Go do things with it. And boy, can he do things with it. Like that dude is electrically fast. Like it is crazy. And he was a big fan or friend of the program, Matt Penny, who we used to have on, has since retired from the content game, was always a big Jaden Ivey guy. So I kind of been paying attention to him as well. And he's just he's going to be a really, really good offensive player. I think he's got a lot of weaknesses defensively just because he's pretty slight frame, but he's just in that like long line of absurdly athletic guards with like incredible handles. And he's a pretty solid passer. And like you saw it, there was times where he just kind of was like, F it, like no one on my team is good, so I'm just going to attack like 3 Celtics in semi-transition. And he was getting to the rim and scoring at times. So like put the ball in his hands, empower him to make plays, get guys open. And we didn't see Duran at his best, but him and Duran have some nice chemistry too. So he's a bright spot for Detroit. He doesn't really make sense for their team though, which is classic Pistons. Yeah,
absolutely. Their highest paid coach as well. And James Wiseman, right. You say we didn't see Duran at his best. We saw James Wiseman at his worst again, which might just be his like constant state of being dominated by Luke Cornett. Added to the Luke Cornett list of domination that's becoming a growing list at this point in the season, which is great to see from the Celtics perspective. Not great to see from the James Wiseman fandom perspective, but good on Jaden Ivey for at least showing some resistance to the Celtics and making this game somewhat interesting. Muse31 saying Evan Fournier in the chat, who I believe was fined coming out of the prior game for kicking the ball into the stands, just continuing this incredible run of bad vibes in the life
it's
of
a very
Evan Fournier.
Frenchman thing to do, I feel like.
Absolutely. Mad kicks the ball. That was my terrible French accent. I apologize. Yeah. No filter. All right, let's get into ranking the Vibe-iest moments from this game, which is definitely the right approach to take with this one, Spoonie, because like we said, it was undeservedly enjoyable for a game at this juncture of the season. I think we're just going to go back and forth. I'll start with the obvious one, the easy top of the rankings pile here, which is the Derrick White triple-double. Do believe I have a clip here somewhere that I can run while I talk about the incredible Derrick White triple-double. So this is the clip of the final play. They had a nice little off-ball action to get Peyton Pritchard a not very open at all three-point attempt to give Derrick White his 10th assist, which is great to see. Prior to that, floundering a lot, playing very un-Derrick White basketball, Spoonie, trying to get that 10th assist, which was hilarious to see. But, Derrick White in this one came out like a flamethrower from three, just jacking up that three-point shot with no hesitation at all, and just playing the way that apparently his father, Richard White, encouraged him to play, which is just to get them up. But he made this game look easy. He was cutting through the Pistons' quote-unquote defense like a hot knife through butter, and it just looked like he was out there running drills, essentially. But to see a guy as cool and as lovable as Derrick White finally get a triple-double at this point in his career was awesome to see.
Yeah, dude, and it's so well-deserved because, Derrick has always been the sum is greater than his counting stats. So to see him get rewarded with some gaudy stat, because he's been putting up some numbers since basically really all season, but it's great that plus he had another absurd block too. That was just incredible chase down style, like Marcus Smart against Norm Powell to save the series type of block. And he's just diming people up. He's making all the right decisions. And I cannot believe the jump shot he has now is the same human's jump shot as when he first got to the Celtics. He just looks so hesitant. His feet were all over the place. Not that it was totally broken, but now he has this short, compact stroke that he just rises up and fight. He looks like he's taking Curry threes sometimes. You're not gonna get over the top of that screen. Bang. Bang, bang. And the fact that his entire career, he's sort of been plagued with somewhat of a lack of confidence. And then you look at what he did last night. I think he had 9 threes in the first half I think he pulled the trigger 9 times just in the first half, ended with 12. And he, of course, didn't play a ton of the fourth quarter. So just an awesome, awesome game. And frankly, well-deserved. I didn't see a single Derrick White rebound, but I'm glad he was getting those. I just wasn't paying attention until you get to he's got 29 and 8, and it's let's see him get a board, But it was just an incredible performance from Derrick, and it just goes to show our third, fourth, fifth best player is borderline all-star level, which is incredible.
It's insane. It's so good. Yeah. I can't wait to see him in the playoffs. And yeah, you mentioned it, his jump shot. His shot pocket is so tight. There's so little wasted movement. It's so fluid as well, just from getting the feet set and that very little motion that has him going straight up. And the shot pocket, very Curry-like you said, very, very tight. And such a difference from when he came to the Celtics not that long ago. So an amazing improvement. I would love to get whoever taught Derrick White to shoot in my life and teach me how to shoot as well, Spoonie. I need that desperately. Before we head on to number 2 in our Vibe-iest rankings here, we'll just tack this on as well. This is Derrick White being interviewed after the
Congratulations on your first triple-double here in your career. I should have known.
I know, I'm not very subtle.
Luke Cornett, not very subtle. Al Horford's son.
Very subtle.
Yeah, there you go. Just the vibes. If you haven't sensed the theme of this show, that's what it's all about after this one. But just adds to the Derrick White magic from this one. All right, Spoonie, what would you rank as the number 2 Vibe-iest moment from this game?
Okay, I've been trying to keep this to myself, Ben. I'm trying not to poison the good vibes with negativity injury concerns. But look, man, KP missed, 4 games?
Uh-huh.
I was getting a little worried. And then to see him come out and then just like start gunning the ball the second he's touching it against this crappy Detroit team was just so good. It like eased all my anxieties. He looked totally fine. He's clearly on a minutes restriction, which is good. I hope he's on a minutes restriction no matter how healthy he is until the playoffs. Just like keep that man in bubble wrap, have him play like once, twice a week, 22 to 28, 30 minutes. That's all good. And yeah, I didn't think he looked slowed down at all, and maybe part of that's playing Detroit, but like he's just so good he can come in and get 20 and 8 in 22 minutes and 5 and 9 from 3, and it's not a big deal. So it was just very good to see KP back. So that's my number 2.
Yeah, just immediately effective everywhere. The rim defense, for one, defensively, spacing the floor and just like actually knocking down his three at an insanely high efficiency in this one. And then just such a threat in the paint as well, on the boards on both ends. And just that end of shot clock safety net where you can just throw it into the big fella for like maybe the highest efficiency look of the game. And that's like your emergency end of shot clock look as well. So it was just it's easy to forget because of how good this team has been without Porzingis to forget just how effective and how much he adds to this team. And then within like 30 seconds, you're like, holy fucking shit, man. This huge Latvian guy is like the best person that's ever entered my personal universe. So very thankful for KP and a rightful second place ranking in the Vibe-iest moments of the game. I'll add, let's see, the all-female broadcast, I think, brought some good vibes and not necessary, but a welcome vibes shift in this one. Who was it? We had Zora Stevenson, who covers Big Ten women's ball on the sort of play-by-play call, along with Abby Chin and Dejanay.
Dejanay, I think.
Yeah, Dejanay Carrington, who's a guard for the Connecticut Suns. And ESPN's Kayla Burton as well. And they were incredible. There was a really nice combination of like knowledge for the game overall, but then Zora Stevenson kind of had a lack of the traditional Celtics knowledge of the game, like what Geno time was and what some of the traditional aspects of Celtics games are. And Abby Chin did a really good job of sort of filling that groove and ingratiating them all to that side of the Celtics world. So I thought that was an interesting wrinkle. What'd you think of the all-female broadcast in this one, Spoonie?
Yeah, dude, I was like blown away by Zora on the play-by-play. I thought she was really, really good as a play-by-play person. So I bet she'll be out of the Big Ten and out of college ball and up to like kind of the bigger games. I wonder if she'll do some March Madness games too, but I thought she was great. And Abby is she's just the best, dude. Like she's just really naturally good at it. I thought she was like a little quiet, like not quite interjecting for like the first half of the first quarter. And then she got, which, I get it. I would be like frozen statue at trying to do like color commentary. Obviously, Abby's much better at this than I am. And then she just really started to warm up, and I just thought she was awesome. She has a good combination of like deep knowledge of the team, the history, kind of the culture. And she's like clearly just a fan who also gets excited when the Celtics do cool stuff. Mm-hmm. And I like that. Like, I actually think I'm one of the few Scal defenders in the world at this point. But sometimes it's nice to have somebody who kind of matches the energy of the game a little bit. But Scal does that too. But I thought Abby was great. And then I was also on the playback, so I wasn't on the playback, but I was watching the playback. So I didn't hear a ton of it, but yeah, I thought it was a really good mix. I thought they all did great. I think it's cool to have kind of guest spots like that. Like I like when Eddie House comes in and does it too, just to get like a different voice in there once in a while. Like I like Scal, but 82 games is a lot.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like maybe like 65 a Scal wouldn't be so bad. So yeah, I thought it was absolutely great. I think I was the only person who didn't realize it was happening.
Right.
I totally missed it, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. So very much enjoyed it.
Yeah, I only wish they did more of it, whether it's an all-female broadcast multiple times per year or just shuffling the broadcast crew every now and then. We've kind of been lucky this season that we've had half Gorman and half Drew Carter. Yeah. Lots of Scal, which is fine. I like Scal as well. I really like the way that he reads the game and kind of like translates what he's seeing into like a human readable or listenable format. And I often find that I learn something about the game listening to Scal, but shuffling it up and giving us a different look and different perspectives from the broadcast broadcasting perspective, I think isn't highlighted as important as it should be. So it was really good to see that shuffling up in this one. And again, just adding to the good vibes of this one. Speaking of said vibes, Spoonie, what do you got next for us?
All right. I'm just going to start this one out with a video.
In August, and Abby Chin is the queen of TD Garden.
And I'll be here for the rest of the season.
I was going to say.
Yep.
It's hard not to rank this one number one, let's be honest.
Same. It took all of my objective fibers in my soul to not go with him over KP. But Jordan Walsh, big dunk, massive 2-2-2 line in like 4.5 minutes. Just completely changed the game when he came out there with his energy and rebounding and defensive awareness, except for one or two plays where he kind of got, but that's okay. He's a rookie. We love Walshy. Like, part of it's kind of a meme and just for fun, but he also represents something the Celtics will need as this team gets extraordinarily expensive, and that is like cheap, solid bench players. Like, there's no guarantee Sam Hauser's on this team after next season because he's gonna get paid, man. Like, Max Strus makes $15 million a year. I don't know how much worse Sam Hauser is than him, and the cap's going up. So he could be seeing that type of number. So we actually, like, if we can develop guys like Walsh for the long term, this team is going to be elite for a very, very long time. And look, dude, it's just fun when your rookie gets out there and he smashes a dunk down.
Yeah, we don't see enough of him. But yeah, Walsh or Drew Peterson, guys like that who are in the development cycle, the early stages of it, it's going to be really important to see how they go. And yeah, 2-2-2, 100% from the field for Walshy, 1 of 1 per 36 numbers off the fucking charts. We love to see it from our guy Walshy. Next for me is just Jaylen Brown returning after the game off and just looking like he's not that you would expect that he's lost a step or any rhythm. I guess the rhythm is the key focus there. Like, just still completely in his bag. Has not lost any of that rhythm at all. 31, 7, and 3 in this one. And the parts of the game where the Celtics really separated themselves, really went on those runs to put a lot of distance between themselves and the Pistons, were when JB was in there just like fucking cooking, man. And he was like, he was all over the place on both ends, and just and we're kind of getting used to it. So I think it's important to continue to highlight his development on this end, but just trucking dudes offensively, bodying himself into the rim, and just like making the decision well ahead of time, like, I will get to the rim on this play, and just like absolutely executing on that desire and getting there every time. So he's just playing absolutely the best ball of his career right now, and not holding back against these Pistons.
Yeah, dude, and like, the Pistons just had absolutely nothing for him. Like, they stood completely no chance. His last 15 games, he's averaging 28 on 53% from the floor and 40% from three. We'll ignore the 66 from the line, but other than that, other than that, he's basically been completely unstoppable. And like, even that Denver game was kind of not a great game for the Celtics as a whole, but JB was friggin' awesome. He was, other than Jokic, probably the best player on the floor. Just completely dominant physically in a way that we all kind of felt like he could be eventually, but there's no guarantee, right? And like, watching him just like dribble into defenders and them just bounce off of him, and then he like lays it up with his left hand. It's incredible, man. Like, and he doesn't even look phased. And can this guy get a whistle too? Like,
oh my God,
for how much contact he's generating at the basket, he does not really get many calls. And it's pretty ridiculous because he's got these guys in these like Jimmy Butler style positions where they're like off balance, bumping into him. There's tons of contact, and he finishes it anyway, and he just like can't get an and one to go, or can't get an and one call ever. But I just like, he's not he turned it over 3 times last night, but other than that, that's really the first game where he's kind of had, a few turnovers, but he's been keeping the balls. Ball security's been incredible. And then when you combine that with how he's attacking, where it's like high leverage positions on the court where you think lots of turnovers will happen when you're getting into the teeth of the defense and there's hands everywhere. And it just doesn't matter. He's just like, oh, and the ball's at the rim, and I'm laying it up for 2 again. Sorry.
Yeah. And I think with JT out, a little bit of an uptick in usage and playmaking responsibility for JB there. So maybe an understandable uptick in turnovers as well. It's interesting, like you mentioned, he's not having much luck drawing foul calls and getting N1s and trips to the free throw line. Do you think that's because of these new rules that have been not really acknowledged as new rules by the NBA? I don't know if you heard the Zach Lowe pod where he had some NBA officials on his show, and they basically just denied that there'd been any conversation to that effect.
Yeah.
And then against the Suns, like speaking of JB, we saw him like getting to the cup and just chicken winning Bradley Beal completely out of the way and not getting called for the offensive foul. So do you think he's just like, okay, well, I could just like do whatever I want contact-wise and get to the bucket? And while he's not getting to the free throw line, do you think that's kind of opened things up for him a bit?
Yeah, I wonder. First of all, it's bullshit. They haven't changed anything. Like, offense is down. Like, it's like, why deny it? Like, nobody's going to be mad. Yeah, right, exactly. It seems like everybody tends to like the change. So I think that's definitely part of it. He's always kind of gotten a shitty whistle, even though he's taken it to a next level with generating contact around the rim recently, but he's always, drove hard and not gotten a great whistle. So this is just kind of an extension to that. He's just driving a lot more. So it's probably noticeable how crappy the whistle is. So I don't know, but yeah, it's almost like kind of a benefit when he can like Adrian Peterson stiff arm defenders in the face. There's no call. Yeah, exactly. Is it grabbing people's hair and tossing them out of the way, going right to the rim? So I think on balance, like clearly it has not affected how the Celtics are playing, right? Because they're still absolutely crushing people. So they're in a position where they shoot a lot of threes, right? So they're not relying on free throws like maybe the Bucks or Embiid does in the same way. And their guys always kind of got a shitty whistle anyway, so they're just sort of used to it. So it's been working, that's for sure.
Yeah, we're just bringing teams down to our level and beating them with experience now with a lack of foul calls. It's great. Okay, so Jaylen Brown bringing the vibes on this one. What do you got next for us, Spoonie?
Okay. I think we've gone too long without a little PP insertion here, Ben.
Oh, yes.
Pritchard was awesome, man. Like, and he's been awesome for a very long time now, but 23 and 7. And like the third quarter, you have it in our run sheet as a assist bonanza, which it absolutely was. But he had 1 assist here. I'm going to run it really quick, and I forgot to rip the sound out. So hold on 1 second.
I don't know, DJ. I don't know.
Neither do they. Foot race. Communication. Oh! Back-to-back dive.
Dude, full transition, catches a sick little pass from Jaylen Brown, and then goes behind the back between 2 defenders to Xavier Tillman. Like
left hand as well.
Lefty too. That's right. Like this dude is like feeling it on a level we've not seen from him. And it's like fun to watch him dime guys up now. Like he's manipulating defenders on the pick and roll to get those lobs into Cornet and stuff. Like he's reaching a level of playmaking I just didn't think he had in him, just due to kind of his size and some of his physical limitations. But holy shit, man, he's like so good now.
Yeah, I'm so curious to see what the world looks like for Peyton Pritchard in the playoffs, and I wonder if this Bucks game coming up, which we'll preview after the ad break coming up, like I wonder if that's going to be a healthy barometer for what the rotation looks like for Peyton Pritchard in the postseason, because he's been so effective in this more recent stretch for the Celtics. But a lot of that is like, okay, we've got a nice lead here in the conference. We're starting to want to dial back certain guys' minutes and manage loads here and there. So we're going to see an increase in PP. But, as the importance of these games ratchets up a little bit, how is that going to affect him? So he's just been so good. I want that for him so much, to have an effective, solidified role in the playoff rotation. But the vulnerability is just clear for even the most simple-minded basketball fan. Like, it's so obvious how teams can exploit his lack of size, the lack of size for PP. I'll just leave that alone. So yeah, I'm curious, and I'm excited for this Bucks game to see if we get a little taste of what that's going to look like for PP. But no, that's a great one. And folks in the chat, let us know what vibey moments we may have missed as we continue to run down our diminishing list of vibey rankings here. I'll go with Jason Tatum just actually sitting in this game.
I know.
Which is like an underappreciated achievement for the coaching staff and the front office. I do have a photo here of Jason Tatum in the locker room shortly before the game, frozen in liquid carbonite to prevent him from getting out into the court there. Totally necessary to prevent him from playing.
Yes.
But he had mentioned in a recent interview, like especially on the road, he feels like he has to play because of traveling fans. So many people in the stands with Tatum jerseys coming to see him. Hopefully, I guess part of the conversation was like, we're at home now. These fans have seen you a bunch of times in your career because you never sit. Why don't you sit this one out, JT? And it was good. Turns out we didn't need him. And just sitting there watching the game, thinking like, all this is happening and all of this is great, and our best player is getting a healthy rest, really was a vibey moment for me, Spooty.
Very vibey, like top-level vibery.
I need to increase my vocabulary, clearly.
Yeah, that's like there's no other term that describes like that than vibes. You know what I mean? Like it's the perfect term. Sometimes you just got to use a word a lot because it makes a lot of sense. There's no replacement. So yeah, thank you, Jason Tatum. Plus he got a pretty soft like 30 minutes against Washington. Like he definitely was not going all out. There was a lot of like, I'll just see if the pull-up's going in against Washington, and it was, and that's kind of all we needed. So yeah, we absolutely need him to be okay with resting a few games. And maybe this is like the start of, hey, buddy, there's like 3 or 4 weeks left in the regular season. Like maybe you're going to play half the games or 3/4 of the games. Please just let us sit you for a little bit. Because, you know, look, it's the regular season's basically over for this team. They, like you said, they need to win 5 of 9 to lock up the 1 seed. Like that's insane. Yeah. That's nothing.
They might do that.
Yeah, right.
It might happen.
So, like they might lock it up before March is over, which is nuts. I'm not sure I can ever remember that. So just calm down, JT. You know, save it for the playoffs, buddy. We'll be good.
Yeah, we'll see. Now, look, I think we're getting to the honorable mentions part of our Vibe rankings here. So I'll run through a couple here. You let me know what stood out to you, Spoonie. So Rondo and Scal, both in the building. Rondo talking to our buddy Cedric Maxwell, who's coming on the show in a couple of days' time. So we'll definitely be asking him about what was said in that conversation. Scal there, of course, got the night off work there for his birthday. Not in the first row, which I thought was interesting non-birthday present from the Celtics organization. Yeah, very telling. Jaden Springer had a first to the floor moment, diving to the floor and saving a possession for the Celtics. We had a Jaylen Brown lookalike in the crowd. I do believe we have the photo as well as the footage here. The Jaylen Brown lookalike in the crowd. There, especially from behind. Yeah. Like he's even got like the ponytail, the ninja ponytail as well, which is awesome to see. And then Al Horford's son on towel duty, which I think is just a nice touch as well. Derrick White came out after finally getting that 10th assist. Al Horford's son hands him the towel. And then, of course, later in the game is part of the criminal group pouring water on Derrick White's beautiful bald dome. So anything of those 4 in particular stand out to you, Spoonie?
Look, the Jaylen Brown lookalike is hilarious. That's awesome. Like, do you think his buddies were like, dude, you look like Jaylen Brown? And he was like, you think I look like him now? Wait till I go to this game and I'm full kit wankered out with like, and he even had like the sleeve thing on too, like perfectly placed on the left arm. So shout out to that guy. Unfortunately, I doubt there'll be very many NBA players who look like me. So, I mean, I don't think I'll ever have that opportunity, but maybe one day. But yeah, Springer, I guess, was, I don't know. I think I'm a little lower on Jaden Springer than a lot of the other fans are. Like, he tries really hard. That's cool. He's a good defensive player. The offense is like, it's got a long way to go, man. Like, he almost has trouble dribbling the ball sometimes, and he's supposed to be a guard, which is not ideal. And the jumper's broken, dude. Like, it is bad.
I was definitely leaning more towards the good thing about Springer, and this is a very inhumane take, is like that he makes $4 million next year. And as far as a trade asset where we have very little maneuverability with all the constraints around the second apron, a $4 million chunk of change, even though as long as we stay above that second apron, we can't aggregate salaries. Regardless, even on its own, a $4 million chunk of salary is not nothing. So worst case, that's what he is to the team, which is more than nothing. So that's great. Couple of missed points from this game. I'm sorry, Jaden Springer. Luke and literally anyone in the double bigs, any other big double bigs lineup. Man, I really fucked up that phrasing. Luke and literally any other big double bigs lineup. So the last 15 games, Luke and any other big have an average net rating of plus 32.9. in a minimum of 8 minutes played per lineup, which is insane and very indicative of how amazing Luke Cornett has like suddenly been. At the end of the season, Spoonie, we'll do the like what just like completely blew away your expectations pod. Yeah. And close to the top there has got to be this like sudden uprising of the corn dog, the Lord of the Rims, as Drew Carter has anointed him most recently. So, I mean, I guess within the scope of this game, but just more recently and broadly, Spoonie, what are you seeing from Luke Cornett?
Yeah, I think it's just kind of more of what we talked about. He just looks really comfortable running the offense and where he needs to be and what he's expected to do. He sets the best screens on the team. Which I think is a really underrated skill, especially for a dude like Luke, who has become like this legitimate lob threat, which is like totally insane. But like he's getting dimed up on lobs like multiple times a game. And then defensively, if you don't have one of those like high level pull up 3-point shooting guards, like, you know, Dame, Steph Curry types, Luke is going to eat your lunch, man, because he is so good at just maintaining. First of all, he's really great positionally. He very rarely fouls. And then when he beats you to the spot because he reads it so well, he just straight up and down, rule of verticality. And like, he's gotten really good timing on shot blocking all of a sudden too. Like, I feel like he was not good at blocking. I know. I feel like he was not good at blocking shots last year. Maybe that's just kind of my own negative Luke related biases from years past, but man, he's like swatting people all the time now. And like some athletic dudes, when it looks like he's gotten beat, he's just coming back, knocking the ball away. And like the rebounding has improved as well. Like, I still think the defensive rebounding's a little bit like, if there's a weakness in his game, it's probably that for like backup big man status. But he's amazing on the offensive glass. He was all over the place. I think he had 6 in the first half last night, which is just crazy. And he's just like the perfect dude. Like, he just doesn't try to do too much. And I think a big part of that is like, he just doesn't shoot threes anymore. And that used to be a big part of his game. And now it's like, just do the little stuff, set good screens, roll hard to the rim, and get in rebounding position when somebody shoots the ball. And we're murdering teams when he's on the floor, which is crazy.
Yeah, dude.
With double bigs, which is like not, I did not expect Luke Cornett and KP to look like, you know, Hakeem and Ralph Sampson out there, but they're shit on the Detroit.
No, sir. Yeah, and he said, like, set good screens. He, like, lunges into those DHOs and sets the beefiest of screens and then just, like, rolls through, like, finds the perfect rolling lane and just, like, soars to the rim like a beautiful big bird, as you said in our underrated plays video, which you can find linked in the description down below if you want someone to check out after this show. So just quickly, we're just going to rush through these missed points. I'll just rattle them off real quickly, and then we'll get to our ad break to leave time for our Bucks preview. But O'Shea Brissett cannot finish at the rim. That's just a point I made early in the game. And also, Boston becomes the first team in NBA history to make 20-plus three-pointers in 4 straight games. So, Missoula Ball, we love it. It is the best. I want it on a T-shirt. I want to print it on my duvet so I can sleep under it every night. Missoula Ball is the best. We're going to get back with this Bucks preview in a moment, but here's a quick word from our sponsor first.
The NBA playoffs are coming, and the action on the floor is heating up. Whether it's these sad little teams that haven't locked up the number 1 seed and are fighting for seeding, or tournament season, there's no shortage of high-stakes basketball moments this time of year. Get in on the excitement with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app, where you can turn your hoops knowledge into serious cash. Prize Picks even offers injury insurance, so that your entries stay live even if one of your players gets injured. For basketball games, if you have a player who exits in the first half and does not return in the second, that player projection won't count against you and the rest of your entry stays live. Porzingis sitting on a back-to-back, you know we're going for more on Horford points, rebounds, and assists. Download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less, it's that easy.
There's that guy, Jake Eisenberg, with the ad read. Thanks, Jake. Prize Picks, check it out. Sign up with the code CLNS. It's a really fun way to accompany your viewing experience, just going through the various prize picks and choosing more or less and playing daily fantasy sports. It's a lot of fun, so highly recommend Prize Picks. Use the code CLNS and support the show if you want to do so. This Bucks preview, this Bucks game, rather, Spoonie, that we're going to preview. I'll just start by saying, like, just broadly, and then we'll get into some of the numbers. I'm nervous about this game. I'm curious to hear how you feel about it because I know we've spent, and you join our Discord if you want to see a lot of this, just like a lot of time shitting on the Bucks and how fraudulent they are. And yet, for whatever reason, we find ourselves at this juncture. They're the 2 seed. They're 44-24, and they have the hearts of the national media. First of all, Bucks fans in a vacuum on their own are incredibly vocal, incredibly annoying, and annoyingly positive at how much better they are than the Celtics and how much of a wash it's going to be in the playoffs if we do meet. And then the national media seem to have jumped on that train as well. I was listening to the Greatest of All Talk podcast with Ben Golliver and Andrew Sharp. Great podcast that I kind of use to keep up with like broader NBA news. They both chose the Bucks to win the finals, to get through the East and then be the favorable matchup against whoever gets out of the West. So they've got the hearts of the national media, which just annoys the fuck out of me, Spoonie, and it makes me, there's higher stakes from a Celtics fandom perspective now to go out and like win this game and shut down all of those narratives. So how are you feeling going into this one?
I'm with you, dude. Like, if we lose this game, I don't know if I can take like the conversations that's going to happen afterwards. Like, it's going to be so obnoxious because everyone's going to feel like, see, we told you the Bucks are the better team. But if you look at the numbers, they have not been good recently. So I don't understand what this like undercurrent of like everybody's saying the Bucks are going to win the title all of a sudden. Like, they're minus 5.3 net per cleaning the glass, 24th in the league in the last 2 weeks, 10th offense, 29th defense. They're 3-3 in the last 2 weeks. Like, what is it that they've put on tape in the last month or two that is having people change their minds? Like, and then you look at what the Celtics have done basically since the calendar flipped to 2024, and they've even taken a step up from where we were as the best team in the league in the first half of the season. So to me, it all just comes back to like people are saying like, well, it's Dame and Giannis and Jason Tatum's a choker and the Celtics will turn it over and fall apart. And maybe that'll happen. But if you're like objectively evaluating the profiles of these two teams, like, how can you say the Bucks like should be the favorite or you're picking them? Like, it should be the Celtics as the favorite until someone knocks them out of the playoffs. Like, it just makes no sense. They're like minus 10 in March net rating. Like, what are we doing here?
The argument seems to be just like, yeah, but Giannis, like,
right,
yes, he's the Greek freak. He's incredible. We've also beaten him with like objectively shittier Celtics teams and better Bucks teams, I suppose. If you look at, Drew Holiday and a healthier Chris Middleton, not in the most recent playoff matchup,
sure,
but I would argue that we've beaten better Bucks teams with shittier Celtics teams. And now looking at the stats on both sides heading into this matchup tomorrow, I find it really difficult, even as I'm obviously not an objective Celtics fan at all. Obviously, I'm extremely biased. That's what makes this show fun, I hope, for listeners out there. But even trying to be objective, I find it really difficult to make the case for the Bucks in this matchup, certainly in a best-of-7 playoff series. And then you look at their last 6 games. You mentioned they're a minus 5.3 net per cleaning the glass in the last 2 weeks. 29th in defense, like you said. But they were also blown out by the Warriors, who we beat by 50-something.
50.
They were blown out by the Kings as well. They beat the non-Embiid Sixers. They beat the Clippers without Giannis, which I would say is a pretty impressive win. And they beat the Suns as well, who we also blew out. So, like, they haven't even impressed in that stretch of time, despite going 3-3 and beating some quote-unquote juggernauts as well. So I'm just really not seeing it.
Kawhi and Paul George, I don't think played in that Clippers game. So,
oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, and it was a really close game. So, like, I really don't, I just don't get it. And it just seems like we are so boringly good that people need something to talk about. And they're just like, oh, well, yeah, this team's 54-14, but the Bucks, 44-24, like Giannis and Dame. And like that title, and I get it. He won a title. Look back at some of the injuries on the teams he went against, which is part of it, not taking anything away from that title. But that is doing a lot of work for how people talk about Giannis in the playoffs. Like, 3 of the last 4 years, other than the title, they've lost in the second or the first round. Can you imagine if Tatum went out in the second or first round in the last like 5 years, other than obviously that one weird Nets year where we were completely destroyed, injured, but like all people would talk about is like, oh, he can't get it done. He didn't even get out of the second round last year.
Sell the team.
Yeah, right,
basically.
exactly. It's like ridiculous, but like they won a title, so now like the benefit of the doubt is always entirely for the Bucks. But do you want to jump into like the actual matchup a little bit here?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing that comes to mind is like how will the Celtics defend the Dame and Giannis pick and roll? And the very smart folks in our Discord rightfully pointed out that what they're running more frequently is the Dame and Brook pick and roll, which to me seems like less of a mind fuck defensively, but obviously is bearing more consistent results for the Bucks. But getting back to that Dame Giannis pick and roll, the immediate concern is like, what happens with KP in drop there? Like, will he get burnt? We've seen him get burnt against less potent pick and roll conversations. So I'm curious to hear from you, Spoonie. Like, how would you look at the Celtics defending that? Because for me, you hide is the wrong term, but you put KP on Brook in the corner and you have him come as late help if someone gets to the rim out of that Dame and Giannis pick and roll. And then he doesn't necessarily need to immediately close out to the corner if they do make that kick out pass. We can rotate from the wing. KP can close out to the wing instead and buy him a little bit more time to get out to the shooter, which is a pretty common defensive action. That's how I would approach it. What about you for this potent pick and roll combination?
Yeah, I wonder if what we'll do is have KP guard like Pat Connaughton or something like that and just like keep him out of the action entirely. And then we've seen Tatum start on centers actually pretty often, especially centers like Brook, who aren't really going to post him up all that much. And I think the reason we might do that is because of Dame. His last 15 games, he's shooting 42% from the floor, but 38.2 from three. And on the types of threes he's taking, like that's a pretty damn good number. So I think the last thing you want to do with Dame is let him walk into open pull-ups. So I wouldn't be shocked if we try to match the personnel where we can just switch those Dame Brook pick and rolls and make Dame get downhill and make him finish over length. Because if you're doing that, it's like, okay, you're switching Tatum onto him if he's on Brook. And then what? It's okay. It's Derrick White on Brook. Well, like you can send help if Brook tries to post him up. And like if we're going to lose because Brook Lopez goes like 9 of 15 from three, okay, whatever, shooting over Derrick White, it's just one of those games. It's going to happen. And then it's like make Dame a driver, make him finish over length, make him try to find kick out passes because he's just not athletically that dude anymore. Like he can't just blow by people, finish over the top of people with some of those like insane finishes he used to have in Portland. He's just not that dude. So like keep him out of those comfortable pull up threes. So I wonder if we try to game it so we can switch that every single time. And then if, as long as Connaughton doesn't get hot, he's been pretty shitty this year. And I don't even know how much he's going to play. But like, okay, Crowder, you can hide him on Crowder. So I think there's options to hide KP, keep him around the rim, and you just kind of live with Pat Connaughton taking 10 shots or Jay Crowder taking 10 shots. Like, whatever, go for it.
Yeah. You got to give up something. Yeah, I agree. If you can switch that action, that pick and roll action, that's ideal. And then like our scram switching and our peel switching has been really fluid this year. So if someone like Derrick White does get caught up on Brook or Giannis in the post, then you can switch that out almost like predictively before it actually becomes a threat. And then also if you're not switching it, I think that Derrick White and Drew Holiday just like fighting through those screens and staying on Dame, especially if you factor in the added juice from Drew's perspective coming up against the Bucks for like only the third time since the trade. He's going to have some added juice there. Hopefully he bottles that up and uses it, diving through those screens, getting skinny and jumping through those screen actions and trying to stay in front of Dame as well. So even if we don't switch, with the stock exchange, we have the personnel to navigate those screens and sort of keep KP out of danger in that sense as well. So again, like we have all of the advantages. In theory, we should have an answer for everything that they can throw at us. And then on the other side, someone mentioned it in the chat here, like, and this has always been the problem for the Bucks, Spoonie, be like, who's guarding the Jays? I know that Chris Middleton has come back and he's looked like kind of decent. The ankle's looking good. He's knocking down shots or whatever. Defensively, he's not who he was. And actually, Giannis has kind of always struggled guarding the Jays as well. historically. So it's not like they have. And then it's like, then who? Is it Crowder? Is it Connaughton? Is it Dame? Is it Brook? It's none of those guys. Like, who's guarding the Jays? It's the age-old question, a tale as old as time for the Bucks. And defensively, it sounds like from what we've said, we can be solid if we're focused. And then offensively, it's just kind of more of the same as far as what we've historically thrown at the Bucks. And I'm not even talking about Porzingis, who's just going to be like wide open threes for days, assuming that the Bucks defense is going to have to collapse on the driving Jays.
Yeah, dude. I mean, if KP comes out like he did last night against Detroit and just like rips off like 3 of 5 from 3 in the first quarter, we are going to win that game by quite a lot. Because you just want to get Brook out from camping around the paint, and once you do that, their entire defense collapses. I think it was in the Discord. I'm sorry, whoever shared this, but it was like the Bucks with Giannis on the court and without Brook, their defense is horrendous. And part of that problem with Giannis is like he's just so big. It's really hard for him to fight over screens. Like he gets caught on screens a lot, and there's not really anything he can do. He's 7 feet tall and like 300 pounds, you know, like he's not Marcus Smart, just like diving around screens, spinning off them. So like you can pull him out, you can get him in pick and roll actions, and you can, you know, we've gotten to Giannis a lot. You're right. And like Tatum, they will concede wide open pull-up threes. Like the Bucks give you that shot. That's like, and it was more so when they had Budenholzer, but they still, just by the nature of their personnel, kind of have to defend that way when they go Giannis and Brook. And the Jays are both shooting like over 40% on pull-up threes since January 1st. So like that is a bad recipe for the Bucks. And then if you have to start trapping and doubling, especially Tatum, he's going to absolutely pick that apart. He's going to get it to Derrick White. He's going to get it to KP. He's going to get it to Jaylen Brown. And then you're attacking 4-on-3. And that's where this team is like absolutely incredibly dangerous. Like Jaylen Brown going downhill against like a rotating defense is death. Like he just murders you. He kills you, dude. Yeah. And like, I have a hard time figuring out how the Bucks are going to stop those things from happening, other than just praying we have another ice cold shooting game, which we very much may have, but we are going to get wide open shots.
Yeah, I mean, that's typically been one of the few approaches to defending the Celtics, is give up the three-point shot and hope that they just don't get hot. We saw the Warriors attempt that most recently and fail miserably, but we've seen it be somewhat effective just out of pure luck or chance, if nothing else, against the C's. So I wouldn't be surprised if they take on that strategy again, as they have in the past and how Doc has with other teams in the past as well. So the Celtics injury report is out for tomorrow, and it's up on screen here if you're watching on YouTube. So Jaylen Brown, right ankle sprain, he's questionable. Sam Hauser, I doubt he plays. He's got the left ankle sprain. Questionable, which is great to see. Already just backlisted as questionable after having some doubt as to how he might look long term. And then Drew Holiday, right AC joint sprain, which is a new, I think, injury classification for him. He's questionable as well. I dare say that if Drew has any ability to physically be out there, he will play because he'll have the juice for this one, as we said. And then the Bucks injury report, they've submitted theirs for tomorrow. Probable is Marjon Beauchamp. He's got back spasms. Questionable is Giannis Antetokounmpo with left hamstring tendinopathy. I think that he'll be out there as well. And then they've got Chris Livingston, Galloway, Rollins, and Washington Jr. They're all out. Apologies to those guys. I don't know your first names. I dare say that won't be a factor in the game regardless. But yeah, Giannis questionable. Jaylen Brown, questionable. This is a big matchup. I would say that everyone except for maybe Hauser plays this one, Spoonie. But hopefully healthy on both sides, because this is going to be a fun one. And definitely like the final relevant game of the regular season, I'd say.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, like, we're shutting it down, especially if we win this game and we basically lock up the 1 seed with that. Because I think we get the tiebreaker. Will we be 2-1 against them? Or
yeah,
1-2?
I think we would. Yeah. I think we'd be 2-1.
2-1. So yeah, we'd lock up the tiebreaker. And then I'm not sure if we play them 4 times or not this year, but we would have conference record over them anyway. So we'd be good there. So it's going to get shut down. This feels like the big playoff tune-up, but I wonder if Giannis plays, because I wonder if Milwaukee's like, well, we want to go out thinking like our last healthy game against this team is when we beat them by 40.
Yeah.
We don't want Giannis to play and get blown out and then like, oh, crap.
Yeah, we do play them again in early April, I think.
do.
But that'll be, like, if we think this game is maybe, who knows if either team will take it seriously, like that game, definitely, no teams will be taking it seriously. So I really hope this is one that we can bust out the popcorn for and really enjoy, because that's kind of it for a while, guys. I know that people are circling the OKC game, but that's going to be an important one for OKC and their seeding, and just not really significant for the Celtics at all. So before we wrap up here, Spoonie, news of the day. So the OG Anunoby elbow situation, which I've just put in here on our run sheet because it's obviously relevant as it pertains to playoff seeding and matchups and things like that. OG was out for a little while and came back, and Knicks fans were rejoicing. We're finally healthy. Randall's on his way back. Mitchell Robinson on his way back. And suddenly Woj comes out on ESPN yesterday and is like, I'm not really sure what's going on with the OG elbow situation, other than like he's going to be out tomorrow and he's probably going to be out. He didn't say indefinitely, but he like could not provide a timeline at all. I'm not asking you as if you have any additional intel on this, Spoonie, but just your thoughts, because obviously this impacts the world of Celtics fans.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll say two things. It sucks. I mean, I have a soft spot for the Knicks. I don't know why. I just think that the league is a lot more fun when the Knicks are good. Knicks fans I find hilarious and not really annoying at all compared to some of our other Eastern Conference rivals. I think it's just because they've been so bad for so long. They're like, finally, we get to have fun watching basketball. And they were awesome with Anunoby, but like, this is part of the risk of trading and paying OG Anunoby. Like, he has had injury problems his entire career. It's why he slipped in the draft, is because he had injury problems coming out of Indiana. So, like, that's a risk you run when you give up assets for a dude who struggles with injuries, and it sucks. I hope he gets healthy in time for the playoffs, but if I was a Knicks fan, I would be friggin' devastated, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. It sucks. You're right. I can't help but look at it as just like, obviously we want the most resistance-free path to the playoffs possible, but at the same time, of course, never wanting any injury or suffering from any other team or player. So it's a tough spot to be in. Obviously, you kind of want to go through, I guess in theory, you want to go through the strongest version of every team. So when you get there, if you do, you can celebrate that fact. But at the same time, like, I just want to win the championship, please.
Yeah,
but get well soon.
So bad.
Yes, but despite all that, get well soon, OG Anunoby. Now, finally, LeBron James, JJ Redick announced this new awesome podcast. I'm really excited to ask you about this one, Spoonie, because you've kind of been like a vocal LeBron hater ever since we've known each other. And yet, for me, avid consumer of podcasts, guys like JJ Redick and LeBron James teaming up for a regular pod where they really dive into like the X's and O's of basketball is really exciting. I would equate my knowledge of basketball theory to my knowledge of like car mechanics. If something goes wrong with my car or just in general, I can change a tire, I can check the oil and change the oil, I can replace the radiator fluid and do some like general diagnostics. But if there's anything really wrong with my car, I have no fucking idea what I'm doing or what I'm talking about. And my knowledge of basketball is sort of on par with that. I have a generally good understanding of the game. I can read the game, but where I'm really trying to improve my understanding of the game is the theory and the X's and O's and the modern adaptations of basketball theory and things like that. So this podcast really seems to speak to that, which is really exciting. And in this first episode, they talked about Jason Tatum and the Celtics, and specifically about how Tatum is only 25, or was at the time of recording, and quote from LeBron, "We have a lot of expectations on JT, but 4 conference finals appearances at that age is elite." He also mentioned that IQ, or lack thereof, was the reason that we lost the 22 finals, and how Tatum nowadays just makes way better reads. He also said that that we got Drew and Porzingis for a bag of potato chips. So I know I've thrown a lot at you there, Spoonie, but just generally curious to hear what you thought about those remarks and this podcast overall.
Yeah, well, two big takeaways. You know a lot more about cars than me. I'm embarrassing. And 2, you underestimate your ball knowledge, Ben. I will definitely say that. But just classic LeBron. Couldn't have a conversation without bringing someone else down. Calls Marcus Smart and Malcolm Brogdon a bag of potato chips. Like, just the worst. Like, such an asshole. But
yes, this is what I wanted.
I will not let LeBron become likable. Like, I'm not going to let that happen. Now, this is one man's crusade against LeBron James. But that said, it was really awesome conversation. I thought, especially JJ, when he was talking about Tatum, just making those reads much quicker. And I think part of that is like being a little more willing to get his teammates involved too, which they didn't really discuss, but I think that's part of it too. Like, he always kind of made the reads, but he's reading them quicker, and he's like choosing to play the right way much more often. And it helps when one of those reads is, hey, the 7'3" guy is wide open. Like, that's not like the hardest read in basketball.
Yeah, what a savant.
I know, right? But I think it's just interesting to see how like the internet trolls perceive Jason Tatum as like a playoff choker or something like that. And then you have the second best player of all time and LeBron James talking about how he is like should be celebrated for how successful he's been at such a young age. And he couldn't even get it done until he was 28, and JT's only 25 at the time of recording and has had all this incredible success. And like, it's just really good perspective about how he's perceived around the league and how he should be perceived, because he's had ridiculous amounts. He went to the Game 7 Eastern Conference Finals leading the team as a friggin' rookie. Like, that shit does not happen, dude.
Dunking
Rookies are
on LeBron.
lottery teams. Yeah, right. Yeah, flexing in his face.
Amazing. Yeah, it was validating to hear and somewhat vindicating. Yeah. Obviously, he's not gotten all the way there yet. Hopefully this is the year or next year when we'll hopefully have the opportunity to bring it all back. But very vindicating to hear one of the more prominent voices, despite how you feel about him as a person, echo our sentiments that we've held for Jason Tatum for some time. So I'm looking forward to more of that podcast. That's immediately in the rotation. Timo in the chat here said, I feel bad for enjoying it,
Same.
which I subscribe
Same.
to. Absolutely. And that's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for joining us. Speaking of subscribing to things, please subscribe to the First of the Floor podcast. Hit that like button if you haven't already, as I filibuster while I look for the button for our outro video. Like we said, a reminder, we're going to be joined by Cedric Maxwell, the 1981 NBA Finals MVP, is coming on this show live on YouTube at 6 p.m. East Thursday night. So make sure you're subscribed. Turn on those notifications so you don't miss that. That will, of course, be up on the podcast feed shortly after. So please subscribe to the audio podcast as well. Help us with the Apple algorithm. Let the folks at Apple know that this is a podcast worth listening to. Wayne Spooney, love your work, mate. This was fun. Until next time, go Celtics.
I love the Celtics!